Okay, now we're going to talk about working capital, which is part of the action plan. When you're out looking for money, thick skin is a gift from God, as Konrad Adenauer, a German, said. In other words, that you can take abuse, just like he was giving you abuse a couple minutes ago. These are the sources of American banks. These are the kinds of money, and I don't know why that printing is double like that, but these are the cash deposits that these banks had. J.P. Morgan, $1 trillion. Down to one of the smaller banks, Capital One Financial. These are the cash deposits in billions. Excuse me. That's 1.2 billion. So that's not 1 trillion. That's what's more than a trillion?
Quadrillion.
Huh?
Quadrillion.
Quadrillion. I guess that's a quadrillion. So there's plenty of money around, no matter where you look. And the same is for European companies. And they go down to 53 billion. So how do you make Mikey? How does Marcus make Mikey hot and excited over his deal, a little doofusy deal? He makes him excited by knowing that the board of directors, and to the extent that he has some assets, are going to collateralize this, and more importantly, the board of directors and his team have never defaulted on a loan. What should you never say to a banker? What should you always say to a banker? You never say, Doris asked me, well, Dan, what do you think, in a bad market, what's going to happen to this credit? I don't care if it's a bad market, a sideways market, an upside down market. You're going to get paid. You never show any doubt. You should never say, oh, I don't know. Because they're looking for you and your board of directors for sufficient comfort. They want to be comfortable in that they know they're not going to be sticking their neck out. And they also want to be put in the file. Marcus said that he's going to pay back the deal, and he and his brother and father are going to continue to work 100 hours a week until the loans get paid off. Because he will quote the things that you say. But you never say, I don't know, I'm not sure, because that's sharing doubts, just like I've talked about for 3 days now. How do you posture yourself so you're not wasting your time making presentations to the wrong people? As I said earlier, you ask and you make sure that the guy has the credit limit. When you go in and talk to the bank, you say, by the way, Howard or Dave, what is your credit limit? We haven't gotten to that yet. When you sit down with the banker, you say, what is his credit limit? Most bankers will not know their credit limit. You will put them on the back foot for sure. And if he answers that, he says, well, I can sign up to 50 million or 5 million or 25 million. Then you say, what's your bank's unsecured credit limit? He won't know that either. In the United States, unsecured credit limit in normal financial institution banks is 1% of the net assets. 1% of the net assets. And all these banks, 1% of the net assets is a humongous large number, so you don't have to worry. But asking those kinds of questions will differentiate you from all the other people that have come in to see him for sure.
Asking what his lending capability is?
Yeah, well, no, what is your credit limit on a loan, Mr. Doofus? Okay. We've already talked about why you don't bring a business plan to financial institutions before you investigate. But part of the reason, and I told you, is because you don't want to give them something that's concrete, that already says that you're going to perform against. Why don't you necessarily, I said that, I told you that. How to make a business plan just what you want, I told you that. How to put punch and pizzazz in your presentation. You put punch and pizzazz in your presentation, and I mentioned this already, by asking them what the bank likes to see. Do you like to see graphs? Do you just like to see pie charts? Do you like colored paper, white paper, blue font? You ask them all these questions, and these are for presentations that were accepted. And how do you sell your idea to the banker? You sell it with enthusiasm. Always enthusiasm. How to prepare your presentation that investor will take you seriously. No laughing, no joking. Maybe in the entertainment business you can get away with saying some foul language. I want to use foul language when I'm turned down for a credit. Never trying to get the credit. And I already told you, you've got a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders. What is this shit? And I've even brought newspaper articles. What about all these loans? Were you part of any of these credits? These are failed loans the bank made. That normally gets them back on center. Because all banks make back loans. All banks. What financial statements are you, are and what they should say. You don't bring any financial statements. And when you normally, and if you bring a financial statement later on, what you want is a simple balance sheet and perhaps a single income statement. You don't want, a financial statement that's 30 pages long with footnotes, etc. What no really means from a banker, an insurance company, etc., it really means you haven't given them enough positive information to say yes. They want to say yes, and so it's our job to put as much positive information and as positive data and in front of them so they can say yes. Why you must talk to banks often and what you must say. Even after you get the loan, Dave gets a loan, you should talk to the bank every few weeks. And they'll say, oh God, we've got to push on credit. We've got to get this $100 million out. We're doing a special. And they have specials just like cars selling cars. And if you're always talking to the bankers, they'll tell you. They won't put it in an email. You're not going to get an email from Bank of America. Oh, we're having a special on $3 million this week. But if you keep talking to them, and they'll tell you, and they'll be candid with you, because you're building up a rapport. I've already talked about this. Step by step, you do 2 financial presentations a week, and I guarantee you, you'll find the money. Virtually nobody makes 2 presentations a week. Nobody. And if you will, you will. Secret banks don't want you to know, and I said this, because they don't want you to know that they got to get the money out of the bank. And there's a reason why 75% of all bank loans are made in the last quarter of the year. Most banks are on a calendar fiscal year. So that means the last 3 months are October, November, December. And the reason why the majority of the bank loans go out in November, December, and January is so they can apply for their bonuses for year end. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to make a bad loan just to make a bonus, but I have seen deals financed, and you guys have seen a deal financed at year end so they could get a bonus, which was a shit deal, but they did it anyway, because otherwise they wouldn't get a fucking bonus. So you two have lived that. You've seen it with your own eyes. Now, I've known it for 40 years, almost 40 years. But they will make deals, not necessarily good deals, so they can get paid a bonus. Especially private equity people. Especially, because there's no accountability in private equity. The partners all get around and say, hey, listen, we'd rather split up $2 million in fees than not, right? Yeah, next. That's the end of it. How to get a banker on your side. I told you you want to, in a professional way, not in a gangster way, but you're going to give them all the business. But then when you tell them you're going to give them all the business, you better start giving them fucking business. And you better recommend other people to give them business. So he knows you're not just bullshitting them. How to overcome the fear of rejection. Just do it over and over again. Nobody likes rejection, myself included. I'm fortunate I don't get rejected too often, but I still don't like it. And maybe that's why I sell harder, because I don't like it. And didn't like rejection from females when I was young. Don't like rejection from bankers. And so I just got good at it. I just got good at presentation. And it's all presentation. Why, if you're going to the right bank, they are more afraid than you. They're more afraid of you because they know you can go to another bank. And as Marcus said, make a deal? Now I go out, you don't know, after 2 years? And I've heard that before. And you should. I mean, the small bank in town, you should know what these fucking numbers are. Okay, now these are the things, that kill you per 100,000. Heart disease, cancer, stroke, lung, infection, HIV, homicide. No place on here is making cold calls to raise money. No place. Accidental deaths include car accidents. Bullshit. This is Center for Disease Control. No place on this list that the top 11 death causes in America are raising money cold calling. So remember that. And if you think you're going to raise money by spending $69.50, this is an old deal, but forget about it. These guys don't know anything, and most of the people that talk about raising money don't know anything either. But and there's plenty of books on raising money, all of which are bullshit. There's no one good book that I've ever seen in the last 15, 20 years that really tells you how to raise money. I tell the story, when I was in New York working for my first real boss, and then, this is before sales training and sophisticated, kind of stuff that, before they were filming it and the presentation skills, etc. He drops the yellow pages on my desk. He says, call every son of a bitch in Manhattan. By the time you call every son of a bitch in Manhattan, you'll know how to sell. So a couple of years later, I'm making quite a bit of money, and then he comes in and he says, well, you're big now. Here's the white pages. Call every fucker in the white pages. White pages is, just lists, not business. And then he told me, I want you to call on every building that's got more than 30 stories in it, every business in it. Well, there's a lot of buildings in Manhattan with more than 30 stories in it. That's cold calling. And I got to be a great salesman. And now it's, for those of you who live in Manhattan, it'd be a great way, but now it's easier. I mean, now everybody Googles. Now people don't hardly know how to do anything. They send them emails. When my daughter was applying for graduate school, she sent out, 47 billion emails. Did you call anybody? Did you stop by and see anybody? You're in Boston. 7, 8, 10 great universities in the country are there. Did you go to the placement office? Did you go, No, I emailed. I got on the chat room. Chat support. What the fuck's that? These 10 greatest thinkers, and some of these we saw in our IQ deal, Confucius, Plato, Aristotle, St. Thomas Aquinas, Nicholas Copernicus, Francis Bacon, Sir Isaac Newton, Voltaire, Immanuel Kant, Charles Darwin. These were all guys that didn't have to hunt for money. They were looking for sponsors. This is not you. None of you guys, except for, and when I said this with Sip was here, Sip says, well, and I think that maybe I fall in this chart. I think maybe I could be on this chart. I think I'm smarter than some of these guys. And so, but we didn't add him anyway. So, but other than that, these guys, you're not them. Moses spent 40 years wandering through the desert, probably looking for a business banker who would call him back. I told you, a good friend of mine who was a senior VP at Bank of America told me that an average business manager, bank manager at B of A gets between 15 and 20,000 calls a year. How can you possibly return 15 to 20,000 calls? You can't. So who do you call back? The one that called 45 times. The greasy wheel gets, the noisy wheel gets the grease. Yeah, squeaky wheel, excuse me.
Can I ask you a question? You said that you had somebody, Dan, that put on like a predictive dialer and kept leaving
Correct.
messages.
That was Lucinda Burke.
Yeah. What did she put on the recording? Did she have a predictive dialer doing it, or she called it that many times?
No, the predictive dialer called.
And just left a message?
And said, this is L.B. Burke. She changed it. She could do it. I can. Her voice was like this, but she'd go, this is L.B. Burke. Get back to me as soon as you can. If not, I'll call back ASAP. And she called back. That meant 4 seconds later she called back. And so she used to put 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 messages on the fucking phone. Now, if somebody calls you 100 times,
every day.
what is it with this bitch? And you return the call. And Bruce will tell you a story. When we were selling, and he was selling Fortune 500 companies, and he was calling Kraft, the CFO of Kraft. The 100th time he called the CFO of Kraft, he took his call. Now, was that a coincidence, or was the secretary and or the CFO of Kraft also keeping track of the calls?
Somebody was.
100.
I've done that myself when I was 19. It's a good, better technique. You program Skype, doesn't program to just mouse click on a button, and it keeps calling. People owe me money, so they give it to me eventually. because their phone line was just busy 24/7.
Okay,
It
well,
works.
the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Most business banks think they can just pat you on the head and toss you a bone every now and then. We'll let you sit up front and hang your head out the window. Why are these banks putting all these ads in the paper? Because they got fucking money. Why do they advertise? I used to look, opening new branches. This is in America. It doesn't work as effectively in Europe. Banks open new branches. What happens? They have no customers. They got a pot full of money and no customers. And for those of you that aren't old enough, but Johnny Carson used to be the host of The Tonight Show, great comedian. And he opened up a bank in Beverly Hills. And it was opening on a Monday, whatever the date. And I drove in from Rolling Hills, Palos Verdes in my limo, and we got there early because we wanted to beat the traffic. And I told my driver to wake me up at 10 minutes to 9 when the bank opened. So when the bank opened, I was the first guy to go through the door. And there was the bank manager there, and I didn't need any money, but I borrowed $50,000. I wasn't going to leave until I borrowed $50,000. Asked him what's your lending limit? $50,000. I said I need $49,500. And I didn't leave the bank till I got the loan. And but nobody else came in the bank for a couple hours. It was fucking empty. Am I the only person on the face of the Western United States that doesn't know that when a bank opens up and it's got no customers and a pot full of money? I must be. I tell this, nobody ever does it still to this day. It's like Burl Crump. Burl, the money's with the insurance companies. Burl snorts down there, and in those days she was big, and she slaps the guys around a little, and she comes away with a bunch of money. And Mikey.
I used that technique on a city branch that just opened up. They wanted to give me $3,000. I left with $22,000. That was 5 years ago.
Your branch.
Branch. I was like, what the fuck? I'm gonna go try this. Bang! I walked in there, got the money.
Yeah. And this reminds me of Falvo, this ad. It says, medicine is constantly improving. Can the same be said of your banks? One is in the 1800s. They're doing the surgery before they used to do the mass and clean up. And here's some old pervert putting his hand up this poor woman's leg when she's unconscious. Which Falvo has done before by his own admission. But why did they put all these ads? There was another bank that opened up that was a female gay bank, lesbian bank, in Century City, and I knew the guy that was taking over as president. He came from First Los Angeles Bank that loaned me a lot of money. And I went in there, and all women, and he looks at me as I'm walking, he's looking at me to make sure, is that me? And I said, Stan, how are you? What are you doing here? I heard you opened up today. I'm here to borrow some goddamn money. This is Dan. He says, come here. This is a gay bank. Women, lesbians. I don't give a fuck. Is the money still green? Yeah, I'm here. You can't discriminate against me, Stan. I'm a fucking minority. Don't you bullshit with me. I'll call fucking CNN and the LA Times. I mean, you can scare everybody. And I said, and they had some really rough-looking broads in there, some real big Bo Dykes. and I said, what is this, security? You think these two fat bozos are going to throw me out of this bank? You don't have enough security in this place. And even the security were lesbian women in their big uniforms. And I said, anyway, so I never got any money out of them, but it was a hoot because I had another meeting, I think with Tim, a building across the courtyard there. But I mean, that's what I used to do. And towards the end, when I was still doing that, I used to do it for fun. It was a lot of fun. Now, most people have to beg friends and family for money. 70% of all deals that are initiated, and this is pretty much worldwide, are from what I call friends, fools, and family. 70%. The 5% is from partners, 15% is investors, and 10% others. Okay? And really there should be another sliver here, credit cards. Then friends, fools, and family. But anybody that would give you any money that knows you is an idiot. is just a flat fucking idiot. And that's what I used to tell your dad from all those people, you know, that he sucked money out of, you know. These people are idiots. I mean, why? And that's only because of love and friendship they give you money, not because of any basis. No basis whatsoever. A guarantor is a fool with a pen. Even though they're going to tell you to guarantee it, a guarantor is a fool with a pen. Because they will. You know, when push comes to shove, unless you have no assets, and then they still might bring you into the bankruptcy and the litigation, and then, you know, and if you're young and you got no assets, then you got to file bankruptcy. And that's a shame to have to file bankruptcy when you got no assets and you didn't take any money from anybody. It's not good to file bankruptcy under any circumstances, in my judgment, but it's worse if you got to do it and you haven't even, you know, taken any money, just because you signed your name as a fool. Low interest rates makes dreams come true, and we're in low. And I thought I'd have to take this slide down 3 or 4 years ago, but you know, what do I know? Low interest rates are still today, and I mean, low interest rates make dreams come true. You must spend 95% of your time in pursuit of money and deals if you're going to grow your business. That means you've got to give a responsibility and delegate to a general manager, somebody. And in all cases, except for when you're just, you know, you're just starting, you need a professional person that's numerate, meaning that are familiar with numbers, very familiar, that can be a CFO, that really understands. And even if you don't follow the dream team, you got to have somebody that counts your money. And raising money is beyond luck. It's beyond persevering. It's the one that keeps at it gets the money. Now, the Dave Reeker story, the first time he made a presentation, that's never happened. I've never seen that before. It's happened to me personally. I've made one presentation and I've raised money. But I mean, for anybody I trained, it's the first time. I hope it's not the only time, but it's the first time. Normally, you know, you're going to make 4, 5, 6 presentations, and you know you'll hit it the 5th or 6th time. Perseverance. This is the guy that I have a lot of respect for, who's persevered. Failed in business, age 22. Ran for legislature, this is America. Defeated, age 23. Again, failed in business. That's bankruptcy. Age 24. Elected to legislature, age 25. Sweetheart died, age 26. Had nervous breakdown, age 27. Defeated for the Speaker of the House, age 29. Defeated for elector, age 31. Defeated for Congress, age 34. Elected to Congress, age 37. Defeated for Congress, age 39. Defeated for Senate, age 46. Defeated for Vice President, age 47. Defeated for Senate, age 49. Elected President, 51. Who is it? Abraham Lincoln. I mean, he never did anything right. Ended the Civil War. Started and ended the Civil War. Had to fire a staff, ditch his private plane, was written off as dead. This was in the last general election in the U.S. John McCain. He was dead. Has no chance. Then he resurrected himself and was flying commercial jets. Then he got that big bus and rode around the country. Still lost to Obama. Sensitivity equals poverty. I've said this in several different ways. And if you're going to be sensitive, then my strong recommendation, and that means don't be a fucking idiot, get somebody that's a ball buster, animal eater, and team up with them. Because in general, sensitivity equals poverty. When one door closes, another one opens, but we often look so long and so regretful upon the closed door that we do not see that one that opens for us. Alexander Graham Bell. He spent quite a bit of time persevering. And this is often a very difficult concept because the younger set get privileged, etc., that we talked about, entitled, and life's not fair. The most time, or the most often I see life's not fair on emails, people on my website, in the chat room or whatever, and they're talking about how, you know, life has done them dirty or done them wrong, and life's not fair. If you get past 20 and don't know life's not fair, then I don't know where you've been. I don't know where you've been. And life's not fair. And for easy, everybody be doing it. If I do what I've always done, I'll get what I've always gotten. And because the whole seminar and the whole basis of these precepts and concepts or to do something different, because doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is nothing more than insanity, as Einstein said. No matter how easy it might be, never accept a short-term solution to a long-term problem. Now, this is really important. Many, many times in my career, when I've been up against the wall, I've had an opportunity to wiggle loose by making a short-term solution to a long-term problem. And you know, in the early days, I'll save my house. I won't have to get rid of my cars. I won't have to take my kids out of private school. All kinds of shit happen. But sometimes by serendipity, sometimes because I just nutted up, manned up, and I sucked my pantyhose up, and I got to it. When you know, and you've gotten through really difficult times more than once, and you realize and you have more confidence, self-confidence in yourself that you can get through it again, you just nut up and you get through it. But when you're younger, I mean, a lot of times you don't have that self-confidence, and that's part of life because you're not old enough. And that's again when the board or the dream team come into play, where they can tell you, oh, we can get through this. It might be tough, but we can get through it. But it's really important not to, to make a short-term solution for a long-term problem. This is one of my mentees. This was April this year. Been to several seminars. Now living in Spain. I asked him if it was all right to use this email. I hope all is well with you. I just wanted to let you know I have pitched nearly 2,500 angel and VCs and institutional investors throughout the world over the course of the last 2 years. And 2,500 divided by 20, that's 100 a month. 100 a month, that's 3 a day,
Yeah.
including weekends. So that's more or less 2 a week, 2 a day if you count the weekends off. Because he's kind of a whoremonger, he probably took the weekends off, sobering up. Let's see, last 2 years, and despite the economic downturn, I'm happy to report that we are weeks away from securing the $30 million of initial seed and development capital with a potential of up to $700 million in the second round. What you said is true. If you never stop looking, someone out there will fund your deal. I'll keep you posted. I get emails like this all the time, but he's a really super guy, hardworking guy. He occasionally goes off the rails, but he's currently not off the rails. And but 2 a day, 5 days a week. Someone out there will fund your stupid doofus deal. It may not be across the street, it may not be next door, but it may not even be in the same state, same city, maybe not even the same country. I tell the story of Bob Guccione, founder of Penthouse magazine, of which we produced the first Penthouse Pet of the Year awards for Bob Guccione back in the day that I was in that business. And he had, of course, Playboy magazine had come out, and it was the early 50s, and he had seen everybody that he could see looking for funding for Penthouse magazine. Now, why would you want to fund Penthouse magazine when somebody was a huge success, Hugh Hefner with Playboy? Now, I would have used that there's got to be room for two in the market, what I would have said, and they were going to be more risque, the pictures. But anyway, so he had seen everybody in the world. He was sleeping on a park bench in Hyde Park, across the street from the Grosvenor House Hotel, and he met a guy that an Australian that said, "I'll give you £5,000 for half the rights, worldwide rights of Penthouse, £5,000." At that time, was about maybe $20,000, and Guccione took it. And he was so elated. He got a room at the Grosvenor House. He took a bath, a shower, had a good dinner. Went out and I'm sure he went out and got laid. And then the next morning he woke up and said, "What the fuck have I done? What the fuck have I done? I sold half the rights of my dream for £20,000 or $20,000, equivalent to $20,000." He went back to the guy, and he had borrowed money from everybody he knew. When he called them and he saw people on the street, they walked the other way. Okay. And so he went back to this guy, and he found somebody else that was able to loan him the few £100 that he had spent on dinner in the hotel. And he went back and gave the guy the money back and got out of the deal. 5 months later, he funded the deal in Australia. and he had taken a tramp steamer. He worked his way shoveling coal on the tramp steamer from London to Brisbane or someplace in Australia. But he had spent years trying to get this deal funded. I told you this is about the guy from Sylvester Stallone, when he finally got his deal. I told you about the guy from George Lucas telling, what's his name, who's a carpenter on the set. And they never gave up. They never gave up. What financial institutions, okay, why you go to the least likely to loan first? Why do you go to the least likely to loan first? Because you're going to make the most mistakes. I used to go to cities, places outside the city, and then when I got serious, I'd go to financial institutions that could fund my project, that were near and that were geographically desirable. How do you interview the banker? We've already said that. But one of the things I left out and I just brought up, what's your credit limit? And when we start doing presentations with Whipple, I mean, you're going to see how it's more smooth and more polished. Why is the first impression important? You want to look like, if you're a guy, you want to look like Whipple. You want to go look like Whipple. Or, now I wouldn't come in with a pocket watch, with a $100,000 pocket watch and, $50,000 couplings like I wear and all this shit. I wouldn't do that, because what do you need the money for? I mean, but I would wear a two-piece suit, blue or white shirt, simple tie, maybe a white handkerchief, not a colored handkerchief, your shoes, your belt, and your watch band all matching. And what I already told you, what the banker really wants to hear, that you're going to pay him back no matter what. How to role play for a successful financial presentation. We started, and we're going to continue it tomorrow. The most important question you need to ask your banker, and the answer you must hear, that he's the right person to talk to, that you're not wasting the presentation, and that they have made successful loans in your area. Tomorrow, when I get involved in the presentations, you're going to see, and I wanted to give you a few just so you could kind of stumble through it, so you could appreciate the good ones when we do tomorrow. But when I call up to make the appointment, or my secretary calls up, we ask, are you in a credit? Are you in a lending mode? Because a lot of banks are under restriction, and they're still they don't advertise that they're under restriction. Because if they say, no, Dave, we're not doing credits right now, then he's going to tell everybody in Reno. But once you get there, are you in a credit mode? I ask before I get there. And some people will make a mistake and they'll tell you, okay, what's your credit limit? Okay, what's the bank's credit limit? Have you been involved? I've got an energy deal. I mean, when was the last energy loan that you had approved? You didn't have an energy loan approved? Then I'm talking to the wrong person. When was the last movie deal you had approved? Whatever you call it, entertainment deal. If you haven't done an entertainment deal, I want to talk to the guy that has done an entertainment deal, or I want to talk to the guy that has done a energy, whatever your field is. How many people are on the credit committee? Okay, I want them all there. Are you a central lending bank or an individual lending bank? Central meaning that 15, 20 banks all pool their loan portfolio, and that means you're competing against 5 or 6 or 15 or 20 other investments, and then they're going to look at return on investment vis-a-vis risk in the risk profile, and you don't want to do that. If at all possible, you want one heads-up bank that still makes the loan. There are still banks like that available. There's fewer than they used to be, but there's still banks like that available. And this is some of the thought process, and when you've done it 15, 20 times, it will just be natural to you, and you won't have to pin the guy up against the wall to ask him these questions and make him feel uncomfortable. You do it the natural flow of discussion. You make it, as I used to say, you just slip it in nice and easy, where everybody's comfortable, instead of jamming it. Again, the first time you make a successful appointment, and then the first time you have a successful appointment, I mean, I've seen the growth that my own son's made calling on Chinese institutions and Chinese lawyers and Chinese accountants. I mean, the last few months. And it works in China. It works in China. Because I know it works everywhere. Because all banks want to loan money. All accountants want to charge fees. All fucking lawyers want to charge fees. I don't give a shit if you're in Timbuktu or Shanghai, China. It's simple as that. And so all you have to do is massage to get around, some of the social mores and some of the cultural issues, etc. And in my son's case, the fact that, I don't know how much Chinese he can speak, they accelerated him a year, but and the fact that he's, speaking some half-assed Chinese, and he's got two Chinese assistants now. I mean, so I know it works. Okay, the proper mindset for getting money, how to get the money. Okay, I've already talked about this, but the proper mindset is you got to be absolutely positive and share no negative thoughts, have no negative words. But it's important. What was the last entertainment deal you did? Did you do it? Was it a tough credit? That means did you have a hard time? And I'll be honest with you, because nobody asks these kinds of questions. And when I mean nobody, I mean fucking nobody. And some people will feel relieved that you ask them. Some people will feel nervous. But I assure you, oh, well, Mikey, was it a tough credit? Oh, geez, how'd you get that done, And they'll say, yeah, it was a tough credit, but we jammed it too, I said, and I bet you the fees were really healthy, weren't they? And you'll look around, or she'll look around. Yeah, they were good. And that's how you do. You suck, and as Sally would say, as gruff as I can be, and Robert and Sally have seen me like that, I know how to suck up to them. I know how to, and when somebody as senior as I do, does that, they feel relieved. I'm not going to beat them or anything, Because I had beat them too before. I drugged bankers across the fucking table, in years gone by. Nobody in America remembers that. They're all dead or retired. Okay. What documents, information you bring? First, nothing. You bring your good looks and your suit and the equivalent thereof for a lady. You bring no paperwork. None. I used to carry a Arabic Wall Street Journal under my arm. Arabic, when I was doing business in the Middle East. And but I was in London with my Arabic, And nobody ever asked me if I spoke Arabic. Not one single person ever asked me if I spoke Arabic. And I'd be with Arabic people across. Nobody ever spoke Arabic to me. I used to know how to say, well, hello, good morning, how's your ass hanging, and that's about it. But the fact that I have it, or I used to have it, I used to carry a Louis Vuitton deal that had a side pocket that you could put a newspaper where you could see the title of the newspaper above. And I set it on the table. Because I was doing a lot of business in the Middle East. And so in Yemen, in Kuwait, and in Israel, although Israel doesn't want to consider themselves the Middle East, and they used to be friendly. They used to say, we see in your on your resume that you're doing business with the Israeli government. The next round of, why don't you just take that off of your resume? And vice versa. The Israelis said, you ought to take our page, your Israeli page, stamp page out when you go into Saudi Arabia, you're going to Kuwait, or you're going to wherever, or, you don't want them to see that. And that's because I had befriended them, and that's what you want to do. And that's why there's some professionals I deal with 28 years later, still. Of course, they've grown. They were already really real smart. I told you about centralized bank. Why should you find a new bank branch opening for easier access? I told you that. When you take your first visits, have centralized. I told you about centralized. Okay. Can an institution take you to the next level? It's critically important. Now, in the beginning, you're going to take the money from almost anybody that's legal. But if you got any choice whatsoever, you want to take it from a bank that can take you to the next level. Because I'm going to spend all this time selling Dave and building a rapport, etc. And then his credit limit is, bupkis. Then I got to go back to Marcus, who's a ball buster. I got to go to the next bank, who's a ball buster. So I want the first round to take me to be able at least the next level. I'd like the next 2 or 3 levels, but that's not always possible. I used to do business with a bank called Mid-Atlantic Bank. It's now part of HSBC, I think. And I was just getting off the plane in, I can't remember where, New York. I was getting on the plane in New York City, flying to Los Angeles, and I saw this ad in the bar, the bar of the airline lounge, and it said, "We're the friendly bankers." And it was the chairman and the president, CEO of Mid-Atlantic Bank. we're the friendly bankers, and we want to eat as much business as you can give us. Well, I canceled my flight. I immediately made an appointment with a guy named Frank Van Growski. Still remember his name. And the headquarters of Mid-Atlantic Bank was in East Jesus. I mean, long way away. And I went there, and over the next 2 or 3 years, I gave them more business than was choked on. And I still remember he was left-handed and he used to sign, his name like lefties do. And the signature used to be all smudged. And I said, "What's wrong, Frank?" And he says, "Because you make me nervous. You make the bank nervous." And his hands were perspiring. That's why he smudged his signature. Well, why are you making the loan? And he says, "Because it's a good credit. We believe in you and your team." And I used to say, it was 3 million, 4 million, 8 million, whatever the number was. If it's ever for 100 million, I'm going to Brazil with the money, straight to Brazil. And they go, "Jesus, Dan, don't tell us that," And then they look back in their file. Well, I mean, how soon will they be asking for $100 million? And maybe I'll be retired by then. And because then I poke fun at these guys, and they like it because none of the other customers poke fun. Nobody says that if you make me a $100 million loan, I'm going to steal it and run to Brazil. I can assure you, nobody says that. Okay. And of course, I performed on all the loans, and I did all the things just like I'm supposed to. But I always, poke fun at them, but I said I take that friendly bank bullshit ad off the television if I were you. I mean, you're going to get some real bad guys in here. Okay, can an institution take the next level? Okay, unsecured. You always want unsecured. I told you unsecured limits, secured limits, and as much as possible, you want unsecured lending. You don't want secured lending. You want unsecured lending because that'll leave you free to leverage your assets to get more when you need it down the road. Why should you change banks? I told you, if he leaves, you go with the banker as long as it's not down to a smaller bank. Why most lending is ultimately done in relationships. I think I've covered that. How effectively you position yourself for future lending requires developing a relationship. I covered that. The difference between asset lending. Asset lending is, he and I own a building together, and we want to buy another building. And so what we want to put that building up as collateral. We don't want to cross-collateralize it, but if worst push comes to shove, because we want the building, we cross-collateralize it. But if it's an income building, or it's an income deal, you're lending against cash flow, not the asset. In today's market, as shitty as it is, people want to have it collateralized by the building, the hard asset, and the cash flow, not one or the other. In better days, you could get away with one. And banks cyclically go from asset lending to cash flow lending. The asset lending until they get buried like they have the last 4 or 5 years. Now they want assets and cash flow. Go ahead.
How much cash flow, like if you have $3 million in cash flow, how much can you expect the bank to lend you on cash flow lending?
Well, let's just make it simple. 10% interest. It's not 10%, but let's just make it simple. Okay. And let's just say we only have 10 months in a year and not 12 months in a year. Okay. That means if you're got you said 3 million, right? 3 million cash flow. You've got 500,000 a month. 3 times 12. 3 12s is 24. No, 3 12s is 36, right? Let's make it 36. It's easier. You got $300,000 a month cash flow, 300. So you can cover payments up to either 1-to-1, which means $300,000 a month payment, or probably they're going to want you to have payments of something more than 1-to-1 or 1 to 1.1 or 1 to 1.5. But let's just say they only want 1-to-1. So that means you can borrow money that the interest rate is no more than $300,000 a month, or $3.6 million a year. And that interest rate probably would equate to, I said 10%. So that means you could borrow $36 million on a 10% interest. 3 million, paying $3 million a year, or 3.6 million, because I rounded it up. So in this instance, at 10%, it's 10-to-1. It's pretty simple. Right now, it's more like 7 or 8%. So you might be able to borrow 40 million, but that's 100% of the cash flow and 100% of the assets you're buying. But that's the kind of rule of thumb. Okay. The difference between intra and interstate for Marcus doesn't mean anything, but the intrastate, when banks loan money across state lines, the regulations are federal, and when they're within the state, they're not federal, they're state. Why there's a bank and investor somewhere that will finance this, because there's a sucker born every minute, that's why. Okay. If you're categorized from A to F, your paper, if you have debt, you're going to be C or D paper. A paper, AAA paper is Ford Motor, not Ford Motor Company, excuse me. Procter & Gamble is AAA paper. Ford used to be AAA paper. Ford's probably B paper. And it's categorized and variations based on the probability of you getting your money back if you should buy the paper. One of the ways, a good way to finance your business without taking on debt is to leverage your receivables. If you have a business with receivables, if I'm ABC company and I do business with Dave and he has my paper, he can take it to Doris, the banker, and he says, okay, why don't you give me 85 or 90% of value of that paper so I can, so now Doris owns my paper, okay? And that's leveraging receivables. Factoring receivables is where Dave actually sells my paper to you. Okay, so, and he's cut out of the middle. Receivables is a three-part transaction. Factoring is a two-part transaction most of the time. So now you're looking to me. You don't give a shit about Dave anymore. You're looking to me to pay you off. And so factoring receivables is an excellent way, if you're in that kind of business, that you have receivables. And then you don't have to take on debt. There's many people that have grown their business on receivables and factoring with precluding themselves from getting into the debt situation. I believe that debt is the preeminent lever or sword for QLA. It's a two-edged sword and it works both ways. It's great when business is going like this. It's absolutely death. It can be death when business is going down. And it's just like a margin account. When the stocks are going up, the bonds are going up, or whatever's going up, it's great. When everything's going down, and you've only put up 30% equity in your account, in the old days you only had to put 5 or 10% equity. So the market didn't have to shift much before you lost all your money. And then you have to have margin calls. Well, when you're factoring and doing reciprocal financing, they don't allow that. So the leverage works the other way. You're being able to get the cash early. Because in many businesses, you do businesses and you sell out 6 months or 26 months or 50 months. And so you have this paper, but you need the cash to be able to manufacture or produce the stuff. And so you go to the bank, or you go to a receivable house, or you go to a factoring house, or you go to individuals. There are actually individuals that do that. And so they give you the money so you don't have to go into bank debt. When your business goes sideways and you've leveraged yourself like this, depending on the covenants of the paper, you can lose your business. You can lose your business. But if you have a good financial person in your organization, and you should have a good financial person, even if you've got a small business, he or she will preclude you from getting in trouble that way. And you want the management team that can take you to the next 2 or 3 steps. Not just the management team that is where you are now. In Dave's case, we've already talked. He needs management that can take him to the next 2 or 3 steps. That have already done what he's going to do. Not learning step-by-step, reading books or going to seminars. You want somebody that has done what you can do. And when I was with the Chens a year or so ago, they had some really quality people that had done. But unfortunately, sometimes quality people go to sleep after they've done it. And all they want to do is rest on their laurels and be paid for what they did, not what they're going to do anymore. And that's a huge potential problem. And we'll talk more about that after lunch and tomorrow. A couple of you guys asked me, how do you attract and hire the right kind of people? Again, you attract and hire the right kind of people based on your track record and or your dream team. Now, if these people are your dream team, then you have to be able to have the balls to pull the trigger, I made a mistake. Pull the trigger, I made a mistake. And that's not easy, independent on your personality, whether you can do that or not. Not everybody can do it. It's like, this system is based on, I could have spent better my 5 or 6 years, or my 30 years, or my 2 years. I went back and I was checking my notes over Robert, the Robert that interviewed with Marcus. He's a good guy, he's 39 years old. And he also, as I just mentioned 2-3 minutes ago, said that the bank's never been turned down, and he was very proud of that, etc. But I mean, Robert has made more money in the last 6 months than he made in his career, his whole career before. Because a real structured, and most Germans are very structured. They like structure. They like things to be like an engineer, you know. That's why they make good tanks, etc., good planes, etc. They like structure. Well, Robert is following this methodology like a religion now. And if you follow it like a religion, like I did many years ago, and like somebody like Robert's doing now, and some of the exceptions, or not exceptions, some of the exceptional people that I've mentioned, you can do very, very well, and you can make a lot of money a lot quicker. Because Robert, Passau Robert, as we call him, had money. So if you got money and you do this, I mean, it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. It's, you know, or taking candy from a baby. I don't like to use that analogy anymore now that I'm dealing with orphanages, but it's like taking candy from a baby. I mean, it's simple. It's not simple, but it's much easier. Okay. Do you need a line of credit? Do you need an overdraft? Absolutely. If you don't have an overdraft, or what they call in this country, or a line of credit, and I'm not talking about your credit card, you know, any doofus can get $5,000 credit. At least I think maybe they can't now with the economy. But it used to be any doofus can get a $5,000 credit card. My oldest son, when he was 17 years old, had an American Express card. He got it. Not because he took advantage of the fact that his name is the same as mine. I'm positive. He doesn't admit, he won't cop out to that. He won't admit that. But he had a gold American Express card. And he's had other credit cards. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a line of credit. A line of credit that is either a general obligation. General obligation means the company owes it back to the bank, or a specific obligation, meaning that you have used some assets, like a building or whatever, to secure against that line of credit. But you need a line of credit because you need to be able to, you know, people don't always pay their bills on time. And you talked about some guy that owed you money. You know, maybe that's part of life. People always owe you money, okay? And it's big companies often leverage by paying 45 days late. Some companies say if you pay within 30 days, you get a 2% discount. If you pay within X, you get some sort of discount. Well, I'm not so concerned about that. I'm concerned about the big companies that squeeze you. I mean, managing cash flow is an art. And when you have big companies, they say, just imagine if they're making 4% on their money, and they can push out paying you 60 to 120 days. They're making, you know, 0.75% to 1.5% on their money for doing nothing other than paying you late. And if you've got hundreds of millions or billions of dollars involved, it's huge money. And I often, you know, I don't do it anymore, but when I used to analyze things, I'd want to drill down and find out how much of the bottom line is the management of cash flow. But now the treasury is different than the CFO. A treasurer of a company is managing its cash flow. Treasurer now functions, say, it's because we're invested in notes, gilts. Gilts are like U.S. treasuries, etc. And they don't break it out anymore. And years ago, they used to break out how much money you're making just from managing cash flow. Years ago, they used to break out how much money are you making just from currency fluctuation. And now the big companies, they don't do that. They just put it in one big treasury function, so you don't know how much of the money is available to that. But it's important. So it's important for you in a professional way to pay late and collect early. pay late and collect early.
Is it okay? Because the bigger corporations I found, it used to be 45 days for them to pay us. It's turned to 90. I mean, it's really.
And that's exactly what they're doing.
It's 90 days, it's a pain in the ass, and we're the ones who have to cover it. And
Yeah.
we're just rolling into the fees saying, listen, this is what our interest rate is based on our line of credit, and now I'm giving it to you.
Yeah, well,
It hasn't worked. I tried.
yeah, I know that probably hasn't worked. Because if I'm in business with you, that's not my problem. The fact that they make you pay, they pay you late, isn't my problem. I wouldn't even say what the problem you have, because if they think you have a problem, then they're gonna pay you late for sure. Because then you may discount the receivable and say, oh, I really need the money now, and so Dave says, if you need the money now, we'll pay you 75% of the invoice. I wouldn't allow them to know that. But that's exactly what they do. And one of the things that the banks did, instead of when the credit crunch came, instead of having 30 days to pay, you had 15 days to pay, you had 10 days to pay, or the invoice is due upon receipt. Then there's a whole game about, well, I didn't receive it. You know, you sent it to our Reno office, but our headquarters is in Des Moines, Iowa. So we really didn't have receipt. We didn't really receive it. And that's why it's important when you get these invoices, et cetera, you know how they stamp received on such and such a date. Because that's normally the day they consider the transaction starts. And because I'm in Asia or I'm here, it takes 3 to 10 days for stuff to get to me. And so, and sometimes if they're going to have to send it back from here back to Asia, it takes another 3 to 10 days. So by the time I see it, or somebody sees it, in the Philippines, it could be 20 days. And if it was due 10 days, or if it was due upon receipt, I'm already, in default. And this is why you need a financial person. A financial person knows all this. He knows how to, twist and turn. And it may not sound like a lot, but if you even do $2 or $3 million in business a year, it can mean the difference of $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 a year. Which is not chopped liver. Yes.
I have one question. If it's possible, in my company, it's possible to pay with discount.
Mm-hmm.
If
In other words, if I take lumber from you, okay.
Okay, if I got lumber from you,
Okay.
okay, then it's possible to get a discount around about 2%.
Mm-hmm.
Should I use it, or should I wait until 30 days or 40 days to pay? That is the discount.
Well, it depends. I mean, what are you going to do with the money if you keep it 30, 40 days? Okay. What will be your return on the difference, the 2%? What will be the return? In other words, how can you use the money? If you can use the money and get better than the 2% discount return, then you don't take the 2% discount. Some companies, some big companies, have a policy, always take all discounts. Always take all discounts. I would rather look at it and say, what am I going to do with the money? If I'm not going to do anything with the money, then I'd rather have the 2% discount. But if you're going to do something positive that's going to generate you more than that discount is worth, then you shouldn't take the discount. In the early days when you're just starting the company, you probably want all discounts because you're going to be cash poor and not be cash rich. Okay. Okay. Now, how do you get a line of credit? Well, you go into the bank, and Doris and I were discussing this yesterday, briefly. If you don't have a line of credit, you go into the bank, and whoever your credit officer, your bank manager, whatever, and you say, he was yelling at Mikey yesterday, you know me 2 years? You don't know how many employees I have? You get up and leave. Well, you go in and you say, I've been here 2 years or whatever it is, and this is the business I have, and we need, you should have offered to me, but, better late than never. We need a line of credit to be more competitive in our business. Now people say, what's the level of line of credit that you should get? Or are worthy of, whatever you want to call it. Well, there used to be an old benchmark, and I'm not telling you that this is absolutely accurate, but 10% of your revenue. 10% of your revenue. So if you're doing 2,200,000, if you're doing a million, 100,000. Now, how that's secured is a different thing. Now banks are all anal crazy about security. So it may be just secured by the general assets of the company. It may be a general obligation, or if you got a saw or whatever, they want that to be the collateral. But remember, if you put up collateral against line of credit, then you don't have that collateral to borrow something else. So you want to fight, scream, kick, I've been here 500 years, fuck you, I don't want to give any collateral, or I've been here 2 years, you want as minimum collateral as possible. Now, they'll let you off the hook a collateral sometimes that you personally guarantee. And when you're just starting out a business, if you're not willing to personally guarantee anything, they're going to say, Benjamin, what kind of commitment do you really have? What kind of skin in the game? You got this, this, and that, but you're not willing to sign. Now, most of the people that start companies have their signature's not worth anything anyway because they have nothing. You only worry about personal guarantees when you've got something. And but now the banks probably want a personal guarantee. They want the collateral of all assets you got in the company. They want collateral of all the assets you got outside the company. They want everything because they want to cover it more than one way. Because many of the overdrafts, lines of credit, up until 1 or 2 years ago, that they thought they were fully collateralized, when they went and they had to take the assets back and they tried to sell them under the hammer of an auction, the assets weren't worth what they thought. I just had a general for insurance purposes, because we do this every 3 or 4 years, everything that's in the castle, and a lot of things went up 200-300%, but some of them stayed flat, and some of them actually went down in value. And because they're, for whatever reason, some antique furniture, is not worth what it was 3 or 4 years ago, which was the peak. So you try to get away with no collateral. So you get one by going and asking for it. Now, how do you raise your limits if you've got a line of credit? Okay, like Doris. Same story. I've been with you 5,000 years, yada yada, and sure shit. And if they give you the story, well, we're reducing your line of credit because you're not using it. And I go ballistic when that has happened to me from time to time. And when I say, hey, I'm paying the fucking fees for it. What the fuck does it matter to you? It really doesn't matter, but you pretend like you don't know. What the fuck does it matter to you that I'm not using it? I'm paying you 1/4 of a point or 1/8 of a point or half a point or whatever you're paying for it. And the real reason that they're reducing lines of credit, they want to overall reduce their total risk exposure, and they want to be able to take the 100 grand or the 1 million or whatever they're reducing and loan it to Mikey at 3 over prime. Okay? That's the real reason they're doing it. But, you stomp and scream and say, I'm paying a fee. So it shouldn't make any difference to you, and you pretend like you don't know that you're going to make someplace up. Yeah.
I already have an appointment with my banker Monday. I'm so pissed about that, Dan. But if you've got a business, and in my case, 250,000 on, is the paper what you call your receivables? I don't understand
which paper? Which paper?
When you start talking about being able to get a line of credit based on your paper.
Okay. Now, you'll be able to get a line of credit based on several things. You got buildings, and you got real estate.
Yeah, and she put in the cross collateral, which I told you, which the building has over 300,000 in equity, plus the 10% of the receivables. I should be able to get well over $500,000.
Yeah. If they're taking 10% of your receivables, and the receivables in her case are from doctors and companies that aren't flakes, that are probably going to pay.
Been with me for 100 years.
Yeah, that's right. So, they shouldn't be on the cost of collateralization, plus you have a 20-year track record or whatever it is. But the bank will take whatever they can get.
Right.
And if you don't know, or you don't care, or you're too blasé, and you're going to the you're doing other things, then they'll do that. Especially now, because now they want as much collateral as they can get. They want, and I know you've been with this bank 1,000 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know how much they believe, but she said, well, if you can't do this for me, I'm leaving. And for her, it'd be a pain in the ass to have to go to another bank.
No, it's not. I run 2 banks. I run Bank of America and SunTrust.
Okay, well then you just flip it on the other bank, and I wouldn't just flip it all over to the other bank. I'd go to a new bank, because you can negotiate better things from a new bank than from an old bank. The old bank will think you're having a problem with the second bank, so I'd go to a new bank. But say I'm going to leave then. You're disrespecting me. You're not treating me right after all these years. And when I went to a divorce a number of years ago, I mean, the bank didn't care that I'd been with them for 35 years, in one case, and 25 years in the other case. They didn't give a shit, because they just didn't. And so, I made the appropriate changes. You need to. There's no business, even a startup business, that doesn't warrant or deserve some sort of line of credit, even though it may be small. And you've got to go in and you've got to jerk them around. After 6 months of performance, I need an increase. After 6 months of performance, I want an increase. Like I told you the story, we had a 5,000 pound overdraft in the company, construction company, and I got them up to 240 or 250 almost immediately. And of course, when you ask the banker how much overdraft, how much line of credit should I get, well, he'll tell you that well, none. You don't need it. And if you're in a cash positive position, they'll tell you don't need it. And in some ways that's true, but you always need it because you want to have the flexibility to be able to do things when you want to do them. And you may have money in a long-term CD, you may have money in treasuries, you may have some money someplace else. And so why should you have to sell a bond or get rid of treasuries just because you don't have a line of credit to be able to do something for your business?
So you don't want them to see that you have $50K in there. Let's say Citibank, let's say you're looking for a $50,000 credit line just because you want it. You shouldn't show them that you got $50,000 in a checking account with Bank of America.
Yeah, well, first of all, you should never have $50,000 in a checking account, okay? Because that's, you should make somebody pay you for your money no matter where you leave it, even though interest rates are very low now.
I'm sorry, say it again?
You said you had $50,000. If you had $50,000 in a checking account, you shouldn't keep $50,000 in a checking account unless maybe you're a $100 million company and you're always writing checks and it's rather than transfer back and forth. And I know a lot of small businesses that live out of their checking account. That's wrong, and they do it for convenience, but that's wrong. And even though you should have some sort of treasury function, and you don't have to have a treasurer unless you're a real big company, but a treasury function, and that treasury function is handled by the financial person, and it keeps track of that. It also keeps track as interest rates go up or down. I mean, he's on the back of the bank telling, I don't know, I mean, interest rates dropped, 200 basis points. That means 2%. We need a readjustment. Of course, the bank will come back. Oh, fine, Dave, we'll give you a readjustment. And then when you get the paperwork, shit, $5,000 fee to readjust it. That eats up the readjustment. Fuck you, I don't want to pay a $5,000 fee. So you negotiate it down to $1,500 or whatever it is. Or in some cases, if they really want your business, we'll do this for, feeless. We won't charge a fee. And it's again, and at her size company, it's somebody that needs to keep track of it, a few hours a week. But at most startups, it's not. But most of you don't understand a lot of what I just said. So, and if you don't understand it, you're embarrassed to ask your banker, what should I be doing? And he really thinks you're a doofus. How can you run your business if you don't want, did you go to school? That's what he's thinking, that's not what he's saying. And so that's why a lot of the people would never, ever try to renegotiate a mortgage, would never try to do these things. My dad, God rest his soul, I mean, he just paid mortgages off and that was it. You know, the interest rates changed, 75 times in the time that he owned houses, and he never would think of going in and change mortgage rate. He would never thought of calling up credit card companies twice a year to pound them and renegotiate your credit card. Because the increases come without them telling you. And unless you read all the fine print, and nobody does, nobody, on the third page of that shit. And now they don't even send you statements. So you got nothing to read. So you got to go online. And when you get these things from Bank of America, dear cherished customer, yada yada, hand job, you get down there, the 15th paragraph, all your credit lines or whatever are being increased 75 basis points or whatever. I mean, nobody even knows. And when Paul was here, we retired, the former assistant, he used to call up, a couple times, every 2 years and pound interest rates down. And when you get on the call center and they say, oh no, we can't do that, let me talk to your supervisor. And we can't do it. I said, well, let me talk to that supervisor or close my account. And God, no, they don't want to close the account. Whatever happens, they don't want to close the account. No. So finally it says, okay, you're paying 23% right now. We'll give you 15%. If you can do that over the phone, just imagine what you can do eyeball to eyeball. And then you don't wait another 6 months or 12 months at 15%. You call them back the next week. And they said, well, don't you see that we just gave you 15, from 23 to 15 or 23 to 18? Yeah. But I mean, my CFO said that, you disrespected me. You're paying 3.5% for the money. I'm paying you 15% for the money. Somebody's getting fucked. But I mean, in a big company, this is like a full-time job. That's why they call it the treasury function. But I don't think, I know, my mother and father, when they were alive, they never called anybody about, God forbid they called about the mortgage, but they never called about any credit cards, I'm sure. Okay. Deanne Verdier, many years ago, got a $500,000 increase on their line of credit. From as soon as she heard this part of the speech, she got on the phone and she pounded and screamed at the bank, and they gave her a $500,000 increase. So if they could give her a $500,000 increase on the phone, I said, George, her husband, when you get your ass back to Potomac, I said, you go in and see him eyeball to eyeball. Because they had they were a cash-rich company. Their business, they used to sponsor, I want to say county fairs. It's not county fairs, but it's kind of like county fairs. And you get 30 to 75,000 people walking in, pay cash, and in the early years, they didn't use credit cards too much, cash. And so they had these machines that counted cash. They had these rooms of cash. The cash was like this deep. It's a lovely business. And we try to buy competition, but nobody, I already made $41 million last year, but I paid tax on 1.6. Well, where's the difference in the money? Show me the bank account. No, I can't do that. And so, but, and there are businesses like, that's another business that we try to like coin-operated laundromats. Another great business is check cashing. Check cashing, it's a great business. Oh, Mikey, you got your check every 2 weeks and you need cash now, we'll give you 60% of it. They start out.
That much?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, even more. Depending, if you come in looking like an illegal alien, reprobate with no teeth and a patch over your eyes, they give you less. And and then they don't keep the paper. Then they sell the paper off to Dave in Reno. And he probably doesn't keep the paper. He sells it off to somebody else. And it's a great business. Because most people in the world live hand to mouth. Now, is it moral? No. Is it ethical? No. Is it all these things? But is it legal? Yes. So not all laws make it moral and ethical.
Question about the overdraft line.
I thought you wanted to know about the moral and ethical part.
When they ask you about what do you need that money for, should there be that, when you're asking for a credit line increase, should there be this question from a banker, what do you need it for? Or is it kind of, well, just because?
Oh, no. Huh? Pardon?
Not on line of credit, I mean,
No,
you should have.
but
it available
no.
for life.
On a line of credit, you need it for working capital. You need, and in your case, I'd say something like, sometimes from time to time we get an opportunity to buy 500 laptops at a time, or 1,000 laptops, and I don't have the cash, so I wanted to have the credit available so I can just do the cash. Right now, I've been living from hand to mouth, and they'll understand that, and Dave's and Doris's, they already have cash generative businesses that have been around a few years in your case and a lot of years in your case, and they'll understand. I mean, and then they'll say, well, are these 500 laptops, where are they coming from, Russia, Belarus, are they stolen? And then you should know they're able to give me certificates that, that they acquired them, legitimately or whatever.
So those,
Go ahead.
those two conversations, if you're buying a business and you're negotiating to get a loan from a bank to buy a business, and conversations you're having to get an overdraft protection increase, those are different conversations.
There are two different conversations. Buying a business, and in your case, that's a good point. You may be able to say, and it may be true, I don't know if it is, I can buy some of my small competitors out of an overdraft. If I have, $100,000 overdraft or $200,000, whatever the numbers, I can buy some of my small competitors.
Receivables.
Yeah. And in the other instance, I always have an opportunity to avail myself of buying a chunk or a large shipment of these computers or iPod, whatever they are. But in the past, I haven't been able to take advantage of it because I'm not always in a cash generative, and I can never spend all my cash because if I spend all my cash, what if something happens? I've already always have the reserves. So, but if you don't ask, you don't know, and you can't get. I mean, Bruce is, and I just heard from him in Frankfurt. His first plane got canceled, but I mean, he walked around the airport and like the Chins did a few months ago, and he got on another plane and he's coming in from Frankfurt now. So he lands. He should still be here right after lunch. But if you don't ask, it's something, they're not going to volunteer. And then when you do go, even before you go to a new bank, the banking industry is a service business. What are you doing for me? Am I getting special rates, special mortgage rates, special rates on car loans for my employees, credit cards, like I told you yesterday, tickets to the Mets game or whatever, okay? And all these guys that are in charge of credit facilities have access to, the tickets to these games. It never meant anything to me, but some people they do. Go to the Super Bowl, go to the World Cup, go to the Ryder's Cup, and all this stuff, B of A had a big tent at the Ryder's Cup, not because they were taking employees there. They had a big thing there because they were taking customers there. At the Super Bowl, all the big banks have these big facilities, and they rent these big boxes for big customers.
They used to take me to Skybox at the Laker game.
Yeah, B of A?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he was one of the first big customers, internet customers of one of the major banks. And so, you should get presents. Now I get presents.
I'd go to the bank, stand at the end of the line, big long line on a Friday, and my banker would see me, she'd just grab me and take me to the front of the line. Don't
Yeah.
stand in line. Push everybody out of the way.
Yeah. And that's what, it's too bad for the people that stand in line, but, better us than them,
Yep.
And that's what, flying first class, even though it's expensive, you don't have to stand in line, and they take you here, they take you there. and the B of A comes and finds me and says, oh, Mr. Peña, we'll take care of this, just give me your passport and your ticket, and they escort me to the first class lounge, Concord Lounge, and they come and bring all the shit to you, and they say, is this all right? And that's how the banks ought to be. Because the banking business is more competitive than the goddamn airline business. As competitive as the airline business is. So, I mean, and when I see somebody that's been with a bank a long time, I can normally categorically almost guarantee 100% that you can do better off in another bank. But rather than do that because it's a hassle, better to give the bank an opportunity to make your life easier than just go like that. What do venture capitalists really do? Some people say not much, but they don't give you anything. They wouldn't give you a free lunch, or they wouldn't give you ice in winter, kind of like Dave.
They'll take your lunch.
Okay. They take the lunch. That's right. Venture capitalists are small. Private equity firms are larger than venture capital firms, and then there's hedge funds now. But generally speaking, they all do the same, which is they invest money. Let's just say that Dave didn't have a business, and he had this idea, and he brought this idea from Russia, like he did, or whatever, wherever he got it, and you say this, you think there's pretty good margins because you were working at a lower level, both in Russia and when you first came to the United States. And you think, well, with $2 million, this is that as a number, you could set up business, and the returns, the margins are, let's say, 50%. And venture capitalists like big margin businesses, and just like I do, they like big margin businesses because they realize you're probably not going to be a Jack Welch manager, and so it gives you a lot of room to screw up with big margin businesses. And they say, okay, and you show them some 3-year projections, etc., and they see, and they believe enough, and they do diligence, and they seem to have put a reputable team together, and they say, okay, we'll give you the $2 million. We don't give you, they'll give you anything. They'll loan you the $2 million in the form of $1 million in equity and $1 million in debt. They'll set up a line of credit. They'll guarantee a line of credit for you. And they'll say that you say that there's 50% margins. Well, that's great, and it would be great to produce 50% margins, but and they'll take anywhere from 60 to 90% of the company, and they will allow you to earn back 20, 30, 40, 50% of the company through performance. So they'll say 50% margin. If you can produce a 40% margin or a 30% return on our equity, in year 1 you'll get 6% of the equity back. And if you can do it in year 2, you'll get 12% of the equity back. And if you can do it in year 3, you'll get 14% of the equity back. So you could claw yourself, you and your management team could claw back maybe to 40, 45, 49% of the ownership of the company for putting up no money. And we will exit in 3 to 7 years. And when we exit, you'll get your pro rata share of the ownership of the company, and we'll get our pro rata share for putting up the money. You got to pay back the money. Whether it's debt or equity, they're going to say that you got to pay back the money. So these rates of returns have to be over and above what you pay them back. The world has changed. I mean, in years ago, nobody did like the offer that I read you yesterday from the email that I got. They wouldn't do it on real estate buying individual homes. And years ago, nobody would do it on movies. And years ago, they wouldn't do, the spectrum of investment opportunities was much smaller than it is today. And the reason why they're doing them now is because the investment opportunities aren't as great, 1, and 2, the competition, the amount of venture capital firms, the amount of private equity firms, and the amount of hedge funds are in the thousands. There's tens of thousands of these guys all running around. And the guy that runs the venture capital firm, the old formula used to be, we take 2% of the total money, assets in the fund, total money. If you've got a $100 million fund, you're going to collect $2 million a year in fees. And we will take 20% of the amount after you get your money back. After we get our money back, or it's paid off, we take 20% of the profit. Now the 2% because management fees have gone down. And now management fees, I know some really big funds that only take a 0.5% management fee. But I mean, when you manage $10 billion, a 0.5% is still a lot of money. But 5 years ago, they were still collecting 2% of $10 billion. But now they're as low as a 0.5%. I think the lowest I've ever seen is 0.25%. But they're still taking a 20% carried interest for free. They call it for free. It's not for free as far as I'm concerned. What you make the business grow to. The downside from people that want to fall in love with their businesses is they force you to sell. It's not that, maybe I'll sell, maybe I won't sell. As soon as the business is ready to sell, they'll sell. They also put at least one person on the board, and even though there's only one person on the board, that one person has more voting power than all the rest of the board put together. If I told you we did the four-season Crestacare deal, which is one of the biggest healthcare deals done to date, it used to be the biggest, I don't know if it still is, where we bought for 135 million pounds Crestacare. We took it private, it was on the London Stock Exchange. We privatized it, and it was sold 5 years later for 750 million pounds. And the management team got 20 or 30 million pounds between them. I think 30 million, the CEO, Hamilton Amstead, got 20 million pounds for 5 years' work. And venture capitalists serve a purpose. They're tough managers, and they very often throw out the CEO or the founder. Some of the venture capitalists allow the CEO founder an opportunity to actually manage. Benjamin, you're a kid, you don't know shit, you got snot rolling down your nose, but we'll give you a chance. And so if they like the deal enough, the more value the entrepreneur founder brings, the higher the probability of them keeping you. But most deals, the entrepreneur doesn't bring that much value. Most deals, the barrier to entry from somebody else, like, to go get Marcus to do Benjamin's deal, assuming Marcus understands that industry, we kind of, just steal the deal. And when you bring the deals to them, you make them sign non-confidentiality, non-disclosure, non-compete, yada, yada. But sometimes they steal the deal anyway, just like they steal the movie idea. And then, by the time you find out about it, and they've sold all their, they've got a bunch of money, you got little money, it's tough to fight these guys.
They all refuse to sign them these days.
Yeah, well,
They don't sign shit these days.
Yeah, okay, they don't sign shit these days, that doesn't surprise me. So that means they're telling you that, if we like the deal and we don't like you, we're going to steal it. And yet, there are still millions of people bringing deals to these guys. And they don't read them, like I told you. They're all stacked around the room and they don't read them. Or they got some young junior guy reading them. And the young junior guy is afraid to say this is a great deal, because if it's not a great deal, then he's fucking through. So, it's a very clandestine group. And just like there may be 10 or 15 people that make big movies for big budgets. In the old days, Clint Eastwood could get anybody to make a movie for him. And then there's several guys and gals that are like that, or were like that. But then there's a guy that makes a movie for $35,000 and makes $100 million. And so all of a sudden he's a superstar. And Spike Lee started that way. When he's just a loudmouth he's not young anymore, loudmouth black kid. And then he's been successful, and he's got his own production company, I believe, and he does all this other stuff. And he's done a lot of good for black movie makers. But venture capitalists can and will do deals. But you have to understand, as I was talking about the dark side of equity, private equity, you're rolling the dice. And in some cases, they may only give, to begin with, the management team 2 or 3% of the deal up front, and you got to earn all the rest. And so they throw you out, and you only have 2 or 3% of the deal, and you're still not rich. And the deal can make $400 million or $400 trillion. And so negotiating those deals is really critical. And again, nobody in this room other than me knows how to do that. And so, and even I would bring in some experts to assist me. So you need a financial person. If that's an idea, you're going to set up a company, and then you're going to set up separate, funding ideas that you don't want to use your own money. And you're going to go to other than bank finance, either be equity or debt, and that means you're going to be using venture capital, private equity. Now, and then there are other hedge funds are a step beyond that. Hedge funds will buy shares in a public company, short shares, do swaps. They use derivatives, and I'm not going to get into all that stuff. But there are other financial tools to increase their rates of return. And of course, you read about it every once in a while. I think it was BNPB, a guy just lost 7 billion euros, being sued, and they want to put him in prison. The guy that took down Baring Brothers, 10, 12 years ago, and a Dutch bank wound up buying Baring Brothers, which is a UK-based merchant bank that's 300 years old, for $1. And again, leverage runs both ways. And what venture capitalists want from you is, many of them want skin in the game, just like Outback franchise is one of the most successful franchises of all time, because every manager of every unit put $50,000 of his own money in and became a shareholder in it. And it was absolutely terrific franchise for many, many years. I don't know if it still is. And those, it was easy. If you were a successful manager of an Outback, you could walk away with $1, $2, or $3 million. Sometimes they loan you the $50,000 to put in. And for a guy that used to wait on, serve hamburgers, to walk away with $2, $3 million, it's a big fucking deal. $2, $3 million, ain't much anymore, but I mean, it's still better than serving hamburgers. We're not going to talk about all these spreads, puts, calls, strips, straps. Those are just financial tools. You guys don't need to know that. Where to find money other than financial institutions? Okay, I alluded to it yesterday. Insurance companies have all the money. Very few people make presentations to insurance companies. And there's 4 or 5 places in America: Minneapolis, Jacksonville, New York City, Chicago, and Boston are the headquarters of most of the big insurance companies in America. In the United Kingdom, it's London. In Germany, it's Frankfurt. In Munich. In France, it's Paris. And they have insurance companies. All insurance companies have investment arms, and that's how they wound up owning banks. They all have investment arms. But they're not normally called upon for people to show them investment opportunities. Why are they not called upon? I never could figure out. It's where all the money is. It's like Willie Sutton used to say in the 30s. Why are you robbing banks, Willie? It's where all the fucking money is. And why people don't go to insurance companies, I don't really understand. I've never understood it in my whole career. Obviously, you guys have heard of angels. And their angels are anything but angels. Now, there's some that are really soft investors that don't want to take a position in the company. That don't want to be on the board. It's a passive investment. If you're going to get one of those. And they are around. I ran a fund many years ago, and we used to listen to presentations once a quarter. And the guys would come in and we'd sit like you're sitting there and I'd come up and I'd sing song and dance for 15 minutes and pitch you. You know, I used to be one of the sponsors for the worldwide investment opportunity contest sponsored by the University of Texas in Austin. And so we'd sit there and we'd see these kids that song and dance. And the year that I was really involved, the first place team was from Brisbane, Australia. They had a young girl who was a lawyer, accountant. She was 22 years old. And she was just a rocket scientist. She had left her father, was the second biggest developer in Australia. She didn't want to have anything to do with his business. She wanted to make it on her own. And she had two partners, and the angels, so to speak, they make the investment right on the spot. They say, okay, Benedict, you're a finalist. Okay, you four guys are finalists. Okay, song and dance me. You now got 20 minutes each. Na 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 na. Okay, 3 million, 2 million, 8 million, 1 million. That's it. And then you got to sign the standard contract. This is the sign. It wasn't a bad contract. It wasn't bad. But you certainly got an answer right away. You didn't get jerked around, and they still have those available. There's TV shows now that have these. One's called Shark
Tank.
Shark Tank in the U.S.
They go, I'm out.
Yeah.
They go, equity portion, this is the amount of money I'll give you, this is how I'm going to spread it, I'm going to be in business with Doris, she does 10%, you do 15%, I want 30%, we've got 50% of the company, you get this amount, yes or no?
I love that movie. Check it out.
I'm out, took too long to answer me.
Yeah. Yeah. Shark Tank. Yeah. They got a business like that in Japan. They just want to have them in Japanese. I don't know if it's still there. But it's a quick way. It's life or death quick. Okay? Now, a lot of people can't give presentations. A lot of people freeze up. You know, and these guys aren't going to be your friends. They're gonna ask you hard goddamn questions. And but if you can't stand the heat, don't go in the kitchen.
Sort of angel groups.
And then that's why when people say, well, why do I get the money? You fucking haven't looked very hard. Yeah, but it's a very selective. I mean, you're talking about the top 0.2% get the money. And those 0.2% still have a 2/3% failure rate. Venture capitalists, private equities invest on the theory. 1/3 are going to fail, 1/3 are going to break even, and 1/3 are going to make a bunch of money. When Margulis gave $91,000 to Steve Jobs and who's the other guy? I can't remember his name. Wozniak. For 1/3 of the company, that was one of the better investments ever made of all time. You know. And up until just a few years ago, Margulis was still the chairman. He's the one that threw Jobs out, and he's the one that brought Steve back, I believe. Yeah.
Dan, on the raising money with insurance companies, like for example in Jacksonville, Florida, who would you contact in the insurance company to go talk to them about your raising?
Well, what I would do is I'd look at their annual report,
Do what?
look at their annual report and see who their lawyers and who their accountants were. And then have your accountant call their accountant and say, I have an investment opportunity, yada, yada. And go from there. And who, because he will know who's in charge of their fund. You know, you try to call the guy in the fund, and his 5 different assistants are going to tell you to go fuck off. There's a way to get to all these people. Another thing that I found in just recently, in recent years, you can figure out what Bill Gates' email address is. A lot of these guys you can figure out. Okay, is it Bill.Gates at Microsoft, or is it William Gates at Microsoft, or is it William.Gates at Microsoft? You can figure it out. And if you can get through, these guys will, first of all, they'll appreciate your perseverance, and they'll answer you. I've had people get through to virtually everybody. Now, and the smart people don't use that as an address. The guys that aren't interested in hearing from anybody. But it's not that difficult. In Europe, and this is maybe 5 years old, Heiko Foss, one of my superstars, the Bavarian brute, he used to, sweet charm the assistants and give them whatever German bullshit you give them. He'd show up and give candy and flowers to the assistant and get by the second assistant and but I mean he was serious. And now he's the chief advisor of Tribeca in De Niro, and he does I don't know if it's cons or what. I mean he's 35 years old. When I met him, he had grease under his fingernails. 10 years ago, he was 25 years old. Sal and I met him in the Churchill Hotel. He was 55 minutes late because his train, the train across the water from the Germany to France was late, and he was all sweaty. He had run from the goddamn train station. It was raining. They couldn't get a cab. He looked like a fucking bum. And we listened to him, and he's smart. And all these kids are smart, but they're not anywhere near as smart as they think they are. And he comes from a little town in Bavaria where 40 million years ago a meteor hit, and the Romans built a wall around the town. It's in a circle, and the town is in the belly of this where the meteor sits. I forget where I've been there plenty of times. And now he's sitting in the right-hand side of De Niro and Tribeca. Whatever the fuck they do, I don't know what he does there, but he lives in some tax haven someplace, and but he was one of the guys that he was serious. He says, "I want to be big, big," and that's why I call him the Bavarian brute. I said, "Well, you got to take the grease from under your fingernails, start you're big." And now he's all dapper, like he stepped out of GQ magazine. And but he was good at opening. I mean, he got through to just about anybody you want to get through to. He's gotten through to them. So it's possible. Okay. Now we've talked about government in a detrimental way because there's not much positive to say about the governments. But you can also get government financing. So not only are they stupid for spending too much and doing deals, with guys that they probably shouldn't, there's opportunities to finance with the government. Now the best financing deals I've seen are here in the UK for the government. You can get all kinds of methods to they'll assist you and fund you. And from local council financing where they'll loan you £10,000 to big deals, and there's a number of them. And there are people that give seminars to tell you how to suck money out of the government, both in this country and in the U.S. And I don't know this for a fact, but I would think under Obama there's even more of them now. And if you're some sort of minority, you're Chinese, black, yellow, green, purple, a woman, you can check a special box, and there's a higher probability that you're going to get money. When I tell people I'm a minority, which I am, I'm a blue-eyed Hispanic, people laugh. But I mean, it's true, I am, and I qualify for all that shit. I've never gotten any of it. But I qualify. And when I told my daughter that you could probably get into Harvard because you're a minority, and because she was just maybe 5% off the normal Harvard standards, but she clearly made the minority standards. She wouldn't do it. So she went to Boston University.
What's your take on that?
I'd do it. If I had it to do over again and I could go to Harvard, fucking right. When I was a young kid, I had a big chip on my shoulder because my parents didn't stress education. They just wanted to keep me alive, And But when I finally went to school, I was clearly smarter than everybody in fucking school. And I could have easily gone to Harvard, any of those schools. MIT, because I was certainly as smart as they were, if not a lot smarter, but I didn't. And so I wish I had. But, that eroded after 5-6 years, and then when I had people from Harvard working for me, and I had people from Columbia working for me, and and I fired people from Columbia, we did the shit, But at the time, it certainly made a difference to me, and I didn't think I had a chip, but some of the guys that I worked for thought I had a chip, and I make it. And it's similar to you, Mikey. I made it up in bravado with a loud mouth, A lot of Mikey's bravado is a cover, and I'm sure at least some of the smarter ones in the room have figured that out. But you do what you have to do, and that's what I did. And there's a difference when if I tell Dave I'll do what I have to do, where's the fucking shovel? You get the lie, I bring the shovel, Marcus bring the saw. Because you got to cut the body up in about 6 to 8 pieces. And I mean it, And so most people don't. I my webcast from not the last one but the one before that, I did a deal about commitment. When you're in your 20s, I'm committed to do whatever it takes. Except, I've got tennis lessons on Tuesday and Thursday evening. I take my girlfriend to the Pilates on Monday and Wednesday. We go to choir on Sunday night and Saturday night and Sunday morning. Yada yada. Okay. When you're in your 30s and 40s and you say, "I'll do whatever it takes," well, I've got to take my daughter to ballet. My wife and I have to go to joint therapy. We're going to, what's it called, infertility, which I have another kid, so we've got to go to infertility, what do you call it? Or I'm going to Lamaze. Lamaze, when you learn how to breathe. Forget about it. Who gives a fuck about all those other things? When I tell Marcus, I'm going to do what it fucking takes. If I got to chop a tree down to teach me how to do a saw, or I mean I'm going to do it. And there's not many people around there, around men or women. There just aren't. The level of commitment's changed, and as I've said for the 25th time, because of the privilege and the attitude that I'm entitled. All I can tell you, other than air that's free, you're not entitled to a fucking thing. You're not entitled to the government to be fair to you. You're not entitled to anything. You get what you make. And you eat. I eat what I kill. I'm not expecting, Benedict to kill something off for me. I'll kill it myself and eat it myself. And it's tough to instill that. And even though when I taught at university, it wasn't that fulfilling to me because out of 350 kids in a classroom, I get 2 or 3, that had any balls. Most people, and I don't like to I can't think of another word, but everybody understands it, you got balls and you don't have balls. Now, if somebody steals something from you, I'm going to get my lawyer. I'm going to hit you with a fucking axe. That's the difference. And that's either encoded in your genes or it's not. And that's what I have trouble with the art of war bullshit. There's a lot of good things, Sun Tzu said, but all this, the story, I forget which general it was, and it's 2 or 3 or 4, 100 BC, and the general, they're fighting these 2 opposing big armies. And the one army was far superior to the little army, and the general brought his men and he positioned them along the river line with a cliff. And in warfare, the fundamental basic is you take the higher ground, not the lower ground. And he took the lower ground, and so his young generals ride around them. Sir, why are we putting ourselves in such a defensive position? Because we're going to fucking fight or die. I don't want you to know it. Most people won't put themselves in a position. I like that position, fight or die. Because today, I'm still alive. Okay, so government financing, and depending, healthcare, there's a lot of government financing for new projects. And there's such a thing as called incubator funds. Incubator funds by General Electric, Siemens, and some of those big companies, Philips, that are in the healthcare business, have, 100 millions or even billions of dollars of funds where they want to fund Marcus and Dave because they have a healthcare idea, and then if the healthcare idea works and you're able to get patents, etc., then we own the deal. So there's no shortage of getting money. There just isn't. But you got to look. Angel networks, there's bartering. Bartering. I don't like bartering, but it's the way. Okay, you and I have two businesses that I need her answering service and she needs my something else. So we'll barter. I'll give you 5 hours a week or 50 hours a year or some bullshit, and she does something back for me. Bartering. That's how they used to do it in old times before there was money. I talked about factors, credit cards, friends, family, tools, and that's how a lot of businesses get started. I just talked about governments, mentioned incubators, investment forums we talked about, where you set up and you pitch these things like the TV program. Leasing. You don't have to buy everything you use. You can lease it. And depending on the capital requirements, because let's say you need a $1 million machine and you can lease the machine for $6,000 a month, for example. You're better off leasing. And there's tax benefits to leasing, and in certain industries there's multiple tax benefits to leasing. And if you're a minority like me or a woman, and all kinds of other minorities, which I've already mentioned. Television, we talked about the fund on TV. And online, if you can't find a financing opportunity online, and this online is new in the last 10 or 15 years. It didn't used to exist. You're a fucking idiot. You haven't looked. And when Bruce gets here, and I don't remember the exact numbers, and I was telling somebody when we were walking back to the castle yesterday, Bruce, Lucinda, and Dave Reeker, in 1 year, I can't remember which year, one of them made 1,800 cold calls, one of them made 1,400 cold calls, one of them made 1,500 or 1,600 cold calls. Cold, on the phone. And made, between the three of them, they made hundreds of financial presentations. Hundreds. And this is before online resources were really developed, because this was like in the late 90s. But at the end of the day, it's still, even when you find them online, if you expect, and as I told my daughter, she sent out however many resumes, you got to follow it up with a phone call. And I forget which one. Some of them called first, then followed up with a letter or email. Some sent a letter or email and then followed up with a call. Some just called, and I don't remember which did which, without the letter or email. Because if you can't get through on the phone, then it's likely that nobody's going to read your email. And very few people still use letters. In the old days, I'll send Doris a delivered by FedEx, a letter on really nice stationery, and when you open it up, it required a response. If I didn't get a response in 72 hours, the person that signed for the letter, and sometimes the guard signed for the letter, so you can't do anything about it. So then, who did the letter go to? The letter went to the mailroom. Who's in the mailroom? From the mailroom, it went to the assistant to the vice president or whatever. And then I, keep making the calls until I found who got the goddamn letter. Sometimes if it was in the same city, I'd go to his office, unannounced. We sent Charlie Soliday years ago to New York and said, we need, $50 million in finance. Don't come back. You don't have a job if you don't, just stay there, die. I don't give a fuck. And these are the days when we didn't have money to stay in hotels. Our budget was fucked. We had run out of money. We had to pay Lehman Brothers $500,000 just to look at the deal. No commitment other than to look at it. $500,000. This was 25 years ago. We had to pay Solomon Brothers $250,000 to do the same, to look at the deal. We didn't have $750,000 in cash. And I remember the former CEO of Solomon Brothers, I'm going to say Gottlieb, he got fired, but, and when I'm on the phone with the Kuwaiti Investment Office and David Buchanan, Chief Investment Officer, myself, and a couple other guys, and he said, well, how's our debenture bond offering doing? $85 million. And he says, at Solomon, we've circled it. Circled it means that it's not done absolutely, but it's more or less done. And I said, sir, I mean, we need more than a firm indication. That's what circling means, a firm indication. We need, is it done or is it not done? You know, we paid you $250,000 to look at it. You looked at it, you liked it. And he gave me some wishy-washy answer, and so I turned to David Buchanan, head of the Chief Investment Officer of the Kuwait Investment Fund that managed at the time about 150 billion pounds and owned 30% of our company, 29%. I said, I don't believe it's done. I think we need a second and third alternative. And he said, but when Lehman Brothers, or Solomon Brothers says it's done, Dan, no, he didn't say it's done. He said it's circled. That's hand job vernacular for firm indication. And, but they overrode me, and it didn't get done. And so we had to go, and I sent Charlie over there, and he got it done. And a lot of the financial guys, and I'm sure it's still the case, they use their vernacular to dodge direct answers. You know, there's a big difference between firm indication. Firm indication is that I have, I'm going to get laid tonight, is I have a heart on. Doesn't mean I put it any place. That's a firm indication. Big difference. Now, publications aren't as popular now, books. They're still around. Software, you can buy software programs, how to get money until the cows come home. And they're worth less than you pay for them. I'm talking about VCs and private equity.